Hello, we're so fucking back. I saw a couple of comments on the showdown, not showdown, on the rant video about you guys actually wanting me to do a PowerPoint on it. So here we are with a PowerPoint on why Mega Beedrill is just the coolest fucking shit ever. Moving our first part, I'm gonna go over what I talked about on the rant, which is my history with bugs. Personally, I fucking hate bugs. Bugs scare the shit out of me. I was in an entanglement with a person a little while ago, and they harassed me because I was scared to sit down on the grass without a blanket because I didn't want bugs eating me alive. Or they went up to me and gave me a bug and said, "This is so cute. What do you think?" And I cried. And for the first like 12 years of my life, every single summer I got stung by at least two bees, and I have built up residual trauma towards bees. I don't fuck with them. I don't fuck with bugs. I don't fuck with insects. Those niggas scare me. However, Mega Beedrill defies all logic and is just the coolest bug type ever fucking made. For like, first of all, let's go over this thing's like peak design. Uh, like I quoted in my last video, Reverend said it the best. Uh, Mega Beedrill is if you told me to draw the coolest fucking shit as a 7-year-old. Except it would probably have Mega Man's blaster and Zero's sword. Like what makes this the coolest fucking shit? Well, like 2/3 of its body is a fucking drill, which drills are basically just swords that spin, and swords are just really cool. So like this thing has like 5 drills and it flies. That's fucking sick. And this thing's entire body is just a deadly weapon and can hurt you. This thing looks agile as shit. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the color green, but its shiny is one of the coolest things I've ever fucking seen. As you see in that picture, he's listening to Blue by Janaskis. This thing has peak music taste. Look at this thing and tell me that this isn't just the coolest shit ever. If you could self-insert as a Pokemon, why not self-insert as this? Now we go into the actual like real shit, which is like the stats in Smogon. How do you take a Pokemon that is notoriously shit and untiered in every single generation with no stats in the base 490 base stat total? Well, what does it do good? It has big attack, big speed. Let's just make it the numbers bigger. So now it's at 150 attack and 145 speed. 145 speed is only contested by like 4 Mons at this point in time, which I'm pretty sure were just like Deoxys Speed, Mega Aerodactyl, and like Mega Rayquaza, whatever. And in its own competitive tiers, it was only outran naturally by a Mega Aerodactyl. Which, let's be real, if you put this thing in a 1v1 against a Mega Aerodactyl, you're just a bad Pokemon trainer. GG, get over it. So yeah, this is the perfect way to make a min-max stat spread. You can say it's a little over the top, but it's via. But as you can see by its tiering, it's been a consistent mainstay in every single UU format it was legal in, including national decks. So it's the problem with min-max stat spreads, like with stuff like Fluttermane, is that you min-max the shit that's way too fucking broken as it is, so it has to just get nuked. This thing has a min-max stat spread that makes it just really good at one thing, and it does that one thing really well, but because it's min-maxed everywhere else it fails. Obviously, I love that they buffed an older Mon, especially like an old Gen 1 Mon that, Beedrill's pretty cool, but you're never really running it in like a playthrough of a Gen 1 game. I would really love to, but there's no modern Gen 1 game with physical special split. I mean, like, there's Let's Go, but Let's Go's for babies, so, like, I'm not gonna use it in that. There's no, like, actual battling in that game. But, it buffs an older Mon that did need to be buffed, and it's a really good example of Pokemon not making a Mon that's just too over-centralizing and too dominating. It has a lot of checks in its tier just by looking like a monster. This thing's main goal is to come in, sweep, and pivot and hit you with big ass hard hitting U-turns and poison jabs, maybe X Scissor if you want to be so daring. But as you can see on the left, it's Gen 7, it's Gen 6 UU, and then on the right, it's Gen 7 UU. It sits comfortably in B and B minus tier, meaning that, it isn't the best option, but it's a relatively solid option. It gets, and because of the nature of having min-max stats, it gets fucked by a lot of things. As we can see here, Mega Aggron is just kind of stepping all over it. I have a video coming out soon now that Gen 6 UU is spotlighted, of me using a Volturn team that I built with this, where we just lose because I positioned poorly and got walled by a Mega Aggron. This Mon's whole thing is if you want to use it to its full capacity, you have to position your team around it. It's a very high risk, high reward Mon, and the reward you get is really good. There's another clip in that video of me absolutely wrecking somebody's team by just pivoting U-turn Volt Switch. I would U-turn with this thing, go into my Rotom Heat, Volt Switch, come back in, U-turn again, and just stack up constant damage and just rail everything in sight. Now here's something I want to add in most of my PowerPoints, mainly because I ran out of things to say, because I'm not good at scripts, hence why this whole thing is unscripted. I'm just kind of ranting. But this, now that Gen 6 UU is back in Spotlighted and finals are over, I've been playing it a hell of a lot. And this tier is fucking great. Please, if you have not played Gen 6 UU, play it. It's such a uniquely fun tier. The megas in that tier feel a lot less one note and formulaic than the ones in Gen 6 OU. I personally like Gen 6 OU a lot. I think that might be my favorite gen of OU. But the megas don't feel as super centralizing, and they don't feel as kind of one-dimensional. Like, Charizard Y is always going to be a wall breaker, stall breaker. You'll have it run sets, and the only real difference is, do you run Focus Blast or do you run Solar Beam? Do you run X coverage option over other coverage option, which honestly, like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. OU is a more figured out and fleshed out tier. A lot of those teams can kind of feel a little similar. All balanced teams have a similar core, whereas with Gen 6 UU, every single mon in this tier that is B rank and above has a lot of versatility to it, and there's a lot of checks that you do. It's a lot less centralized when it comes to, okay, I want to beat this certain threat when building a team. I think what I look for in a Pokemon tier, competitive tier, is the balance between how much do I have to play around meta and how much can I play around the Pokemon I want to use. Which, obviously no matter what tier you play in, you're going to be having to play around meta. And it's not a bad thing to have to make your team based around the meta. The meta is what you're playing. You have to play to cater to it. But there's some mons where it's like, okay, I have this gimmicky ass idea that I want to use. How can I can make my gimmick work, and I can have one or two mons dedicated to, okay, I know this threat will show up. Also, the amount of, like, the mons that are in this tier are also really sick. You have mons like Crawdaunt. Crawdaunt's one of the most underrated and hype wall breakers in all of Pokemon. Adaptability knockoff Crabhammer is so cool. You have stuff like Heracross that can either run Moxie or Guts sets. Every single Pokemon in this tier does not feel super duper flat. And you still have badass options like, normal Metagross. You have Hydreigon, which Hydreigon's super duper versatile. You can run it as a stall breaker. You can run it as a Choice Specs or Choice Scarf sweeper, which Choice Scarf is a legitimate. Choice Scarf Hydreigon outspeeds Mega Beedrill, and it outspeeds Mega Aerodactyl. No mon in the tier I feel like plays super duper similar. The only mon I think that really kind of feels super samey and boring is Donphan, and it's because it's a defensive ground type. We all know what defensive ground types do. Even for mons that, I think a universal thing with Eviolite mons is that they all feel kind of similar, because any mon that runs Eviolite, it kind of has one set to capitalize on Eviolite. When even then, the big Eviolite mon in Gen 6 UU is Gligar, and Gligar has a lot of great options that you can switch between. The one set I'm using is a Stealth Rock Defogger which maybe that is a little counterproductive, but it works. And there's a lot of times where it's like, oh, I wish I could have ran this move, but I didn't. Like there's a game in that video it's gonna go up where I really needed to run Toxic on it, but I didn't, which allows you to build around opportunity cost. And there's one game in there where I wish instead of having Hypercutter, I used Toxic, or I used Immunity. Every single mon fits into this box of we have XYZ amount of sets. Every single set has its own set of counters, and it's easy to. It's a tier where I feel like it's very easy to adapt to your opponent's team. That's one thing I love about Generations with Team Preview, is that it makes stuff feel a lot less matchup fishy, because you see these mons, you understand, okay, they can do this, what can my team do against it, and then be able to build your game plan on what your team can do against every single mon's individual sets. And a lot of the mons kind of feel like, okay, this thing is scary until it reveals what it's running. Once it reveals what it's running, I know what to do. And it's a tier where I feel like all the cool play styles in competitive singles can really be shown. Bulky offense is a really good team build. Mega Aggron with Cursed Stealth Rocks, fucking Iron Head, and Earthquake. Really good bulky offense mon. And you also have stuff, what am I also thinking of? There's a lot of good bulky offense mons in there. Hyper offense still works really well. Hyper offense is always gonna be really good, but hyper offense is always gonna run rampant. Balanced teams are definitely a lot more prevalent with how versatile some mons are, like Rotom Heat, how you can use it as a balanced mon. There's a lot of variety, and there's a lot of just cool mons you wouldn't really be seeing used anywhere else. Like, when was the last time you saw Gligar used? Like, exactly. Please, if you get anything out of this video, aside from the fact that Mega Beedrill is fucking awesome, please play Gen 6 UU while it's available. Great fucking tier. Build the community up for this fucking tier. Sorry for the weird cut, but with that being said, thanks for watching. Stream my music. All my links are in the description. More Pokemon videos coming soon, but also I will, now that school's over, I'm going to be dropping a lot more music. So these Pokemon videos are going to be really infrequent because I want to really grind out music. I hope you guys enjoy. If you're fans of experimental, industrial, aggressive hip-hop and like fusions of like Dario Core and shit, check me out. I think you'd fit in. I think you would like my shit.